We have some welcome news for people laid off and looking for health insurance. The deadline to sign up for COBRA coverage has been extended. CBS 2's Corey James has this.
Unemployment, no health insurance, no woman. It's been kind of rough.
Ali Shabazz is trying to stay positive, but like many people in the tri-state area, he's been stripped of health insurance after losing his job because of COVID-19.
Right now I have a hip injury, and I can't afford to get it looked at. You know, it pains me every day.
But the Department of Labor announced Wednesday it has joined forces with the Department of Treasury and Internal Revenue Service to extend the time frame for people wanting insurance under COBRA. The continuation coverage allows those who recently lost their job to keep their same insurance plan. Under normal circumstances, someone unemployed would only get 60 days to elect into the program. However, this new change is extending the deadline, giving people who qualify until August 28th to make a decision which does not force them to spend cash on insurance now. Mark Hirschleg is a New Jersey health insurance broker who specializes in employment benefits. He tells CBS 2 this is happening because of the national emergency that started in March and ends in June.
And for some individual, even exceeds more than 60 days, because if they lost their job March 1st, they have 6 months to elect their COBRA.
Brian Gruff with the American Retirement Association says the extended deadline also includes antibody tests for COBRA customers.
Previously, it wasn't clear if for folks who are going out and trying to get an antibody test, a lot of the providers were saying it isn't covered. It appears now that they will be covered.
But it's coverage Shabazz says he still can't afford.
Everything's costly, especially if you haven't been working.
And it could cost you even more because depending on when you select COBRA, the premiums for it could force you to pay thousands of dollars up front for coverage. Corey James, CBS 2 News.
Now, for more insight on U.S.-China relations, we go to Vijay Prashad, director of the Tricontinental Institute for Social Research in New York City. Welcome to Global Watch. Well, what do these new export restrictions that mentioned in our previous report mean? And why is Donald Trump enacting these changes now? What has changed?
Well, the rules come under the name of Wilbur Ross, who's the Commerce Secretary. Mr. Ross in January said that under the coronavirus, the United States might be able to recover jobs from China. In other words, there's a sort of hallucination that the United States may be able to use the COVID-19 crisis to break the supply chain reliance on China on the one hand, and secondly, prevent Chinese tech companies from gaining any advantage across the globe. This is really what Mr. Ross has been saying for the last few years, long before the coronavirus. This is actually not so clear whether it's going to be good for the United States. As you know, there's a huge trade imbalance between the United States and China, about almost $600 billion of goods imported from China to the United States and about $180 billion from the United States to China. The bulk of the goods coming from the United States to China are aircraft and electrical machinery. Now, if they're actually going to follow Mr. Wilbur Ross's new rules, Boeing is going to have a hard time selling jets to China, which means that the Chinese government might very well, or Chinese aviation might very well buy Airbus from Europe rather than Boeing from China. So this may actually end up hurting American businesses at a time when they are seeking markets.
If you, as what you said, it hurts both sides, hurts both America and China. Why do you think Donald Trump is doing it?
Well, they're playing a long game. They're not interested in the short game. That's exactly what his trade war was about. The United States, for a long period, has felt threatened by what is known as the rise of China, and has, in a sense, imposed a war, a trade war on China. I mean, this is not a trade war that I think either the Chinese or anyone else around the world needs at this time and even before this. I think the United States, threatened by the rise of competitors of any kind, operates in this way. It operated against Japan in this way in the 1990s, and now we see a repeat.
Now, talking about a trade war, actually at the time and now, especially some commentators have talked about the US and China entering a new Cold War. Do you see the situation as serious as that? And how might rising tensions actually play out going forward?
I'm very uncomfortable with the language of a new Cold War because that language assumes that there are two parties to this war. If you look at the Commerce Department of the United States' new rules, it applies against Russia, Venezuela, and China. And we have to see this as the United States trying to prosecute conflict, to intensify conflict around the world. I don't see these other countries looking for a struggle. You know, Venezuela, for instance, isn't looking to confront the United States. It's the United States that's confronting Venezuela. So I don't see this as a Cold War. I see this as the United States unnecessarily provoking conflict, not only in Eurasia, it includes Russia and China, but also in Venezuela. I think this is the United States provoking conflict rather than, you know, any conflict existing in the world. And I'm afraid we should see it like that and not use the language of a Cold War.
Right, so we'll be getting back to you, Mr. Prasad, for more insights.
Nearly 2.5 million people have signed up to the government's COVID Safe app. Despite privacy and design concerns, the milestone was reached 10 days earlier than expected. Mark Santomartino explains.
Mother of two, Holly Donovan, feared the COVID Safe app had diagnosed her with coronavirus.
This app actually said I tested positive.
The message, "You have tested positive for COVID-19, appears if you tap the button reading, "Has a health official asked you to upload your data?" It's not telling users they have coronavirus, but asking them to confirm that they've tested positive. Confusing design for which the health minister's making no apologies.
An extraordinary 2.44 million Australians have downloaded and registered for the COVID Safe app. Where we're at now was where we had hoped to be in 10 days' time.
If you download and register with COVID Safe, the app uses Bluetooth to scan for other nearby users. When you spend more than 15 minutes with someone, the app will record the time, date and that user's details. Location is not recorded. That data is kept on your phone for up to 21 days, but is only shared with your consent after you tell the app you've tested positive for the virus.
When you look at other applications like Facebook and Google services, I think the risk is relatively much higher. The benefits will outweigh any concerns.
Australia's much criticised metadata laws and the recent robo-debt scandal have done nothing to convince Digital Rights Watch Chair Lizzie O'Shea refusing to download the app without independent oversight.
Handing this to an independent regulatory authority that could provide scrutiny and transparency and accountability would be a huge step forward.
There already is, and that's the COVID committee of the Senate, which is reviewing the entire government response to COVID.
The Health Minister has promised the app's source code will be made public within 2 weeks. Mark Santomartino, 9 News.